Welcome to Pebbles of Light. I'm your host, Ann Maxon. Have you ever felt a bit lost during the dark times of life's challenges? I know I have. I'm so grateful for those friends, loved ones, and even strangers that have provided me a pebble of light in the form of understanding and support. They've blessed my life, sometimes even more than they know. Seeing a little bright spot on the path has helped me to move forward when things are difficult. This show is here to celebrate those who add light to our lives. We will share some of their stories as well as ways in which to light the paths of others. Please come find me on Instagram and Facebook at Pebbles of Light, as well as at ammaxon.com. I love having the opportunity to interact with you and hear about those who've added a pebble of light to your path. Enjoy the show. Welcome to episode 12 of Pebbles of Light. Today I'm grateful to share an interview with Maria Anderson. I've known Maria for about 5 years, and she has had such a great impact on me and my kids. Before we get into the interview, here is a quick word from this week's sponsor.
Did you start any new hobbies during the pandemic? Our family started designing t-shirts and other apparel. We made a bunch of different designs focusing on the positive message, see good days. We also did a design called Please Stay that helps raise money for suicide awareness and prevention through automatic donations to the National Suicide Hotline. Check out the link in the show notes to go to the See Good Day shop and watch. Get 10% off with a discount N10. That's N with an E and 10. Why do it again? I want to.
Now let's review last week's pebble. It was to be gentle and forgiving of yourself. I hope that we were able to do that last week, and I hope that you can keep it up. Maria Anderson is a passionate educator who left a traditional environment last year to found a nonprofit called Coyote Conscience that focuses on nature-led approaches to education. My kids have done summer camp through her program, and they have a blast, spending all day outside, exploring, adventuring, and learning. They come home sweaty, covered in dirt, tired, and extremely happy, just like I did during those awesome summer days in Minnesota. Enjoy these thoughts and insights from Maria, and if you're local to Boise, be sure to check out the show notes for more information about her programs. Hi, Maria. I'm so grateful to have you on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
My boys love Maria, and they've done her camps in the summer for, I think, the past 2 years. Maybe our oldest son has done them 3 times. I can't remember. And they decided that I asked them this morning, I was like, I get to interview Maria today. And they were really excited. I said, if you were going to interview her, what would you ask her? And they said, I want to know what her favorite plant is and why.
Ooh.
So I added another side of that too, to what is your favorite animal and why? So what's your favorite plant and animal and why?
So I haven't shared with anybody what my favorite plant is. So, but I would definitely, without a doubt, say dandelion, because it is kind of regarded as a weed, not kind of, but it's regarded as a weed. And it's like, just, I feel like it works so hard to come out wherever it can to bring lightness, and it's such a beautiful flower if you don't see it as a weed. So, and it just brightens my day whenever I see them. And then on the other side, it's just an incredible, every part of the plant can be used for nutritional value. And it's a great source of medicine. So yeah, dandelion.
Yeah.
An animal? And an animal, it would be a manatee. And the reason is actually the manatee kind of chose me. So I had a experiential experience in Joshua Tree, and we were all kind of having I guess like a meditation, you would say, and the manatee showed themselves to me. So I have since have manatee pictures in my house, and manatees are very common in Puerto Rico, where I'm from. And when I visited there about a year ago, we went to the Manatee Conservation Center and got to see manatees, and they had sea turtles, and they had a booby, which is a really fun bird that I like to say its name. And and it's kind of a cool story, but so we went through the center. It was Annabelle, my daughter, and my mom. And after we were driving to our vacation house, and on the way, my mom was really hungry, so we had to stop at this random place, and we parked towards the ocean. And as soon as we stepped out in the ocean, there was a manatee and a mom. And it was just
Oh,
an incredible, we just like watched it for 15, 20 minutes. And it was just such an incredible experience. And so I have a tender heart towards manatee.
I love that. For me, it's blue herons. I don't know if they're necessarily my favorite animal, but they
Mm-hmm.
remind me of my grandma.
Oh,
And so every time I see a blue heron, I feel like it's my grandma just being like, I got you. I was a boy mom too. Like, I'm with you. But yeah, so growing up in northern Minnesota, we had blue herons all over the place. But every once in a while, we see them pretty often here on the way to and from school.
yeah.
So can you share a little bit about your background and how Coyote Conscience, your business, came to be?
I guess my background, well, it's kind of an interesting background. And my background is actually in international relations. That's what I went to college for. My grandfather wanted me to be a diplomat. Sorry, Grandpa.
Cool.
And then I finished college and I didn't know what to do. So I found a program called the JET program, where you teach English in Japan for a year. And I taught English in Japan, and I just really enjoyed working with kids. And then while I was in Japan, I didn't know what I was going to do when I came back. So I just typed "cool job" on the internet search, and a job in the Florida Keys showed up as a marine science instructor. And even though I had no science background whatsoever, I did know the animals and species, the plants and animals were pretty similar to the ones in Puerto Rico. So I was like, well, I know that. I'm comfortable snorkeling. I'm comfortable swimming. So I did that and learned a lot and just fell in love with teaching kids. And I met Montessori families and fell in love with Montessori students. And then I worked at another camp in San Diego. And I always asked for the Montessori families. And that's where I did my training. And that's where I met Jody, who hired me to come up here to Boise, Idaho and work here. And about 2 years ago, I think for me, I'm always checking in, like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I like doing the best I can with what I've got? And so I went on a program. I actually wanted to go to a 1 week adult program to where you have instructors and you live out in nature for a week with nothing but what you have in your backpack, no food. You scavenge for food and all that stuff. This is kind of embarrassing, but I couldn't really fund it. So I asked, I got funding to do the student program, which I was like, that's great. Like it was called Art of Mentoring program. And that was in 2 years ago, 2018. And I had already attended one of their programs, just a weekend. It's called Coyote Mentoring Program. And it blew my mind. Like I was there for less than 48 hours and I need more. So this one was an 8-day program and it blew my mind even more. So it was just, they really looked at education as a cultural element, and how we have basically forgotten something in trying to continue to, progress. And we have kind of lost touch with our humanity and our humanness. And that includes, sitting by a fire, telling stories, knowing your plants and animals, just all these basic human qualities that we have outsourced basically to the grocery store and to electricity, and how we've basically forgotten a part of ourselves by doing that, that makes us whole and complete. So obviously they don't explain it that way. You experience it and you're like, whoa, this is just the things that happen. It was a class of about, I think with instructors, it was about a little under 40 of us. And by the end of the week, we were all best friends. It was a really cool experience. And I just was blown away. And I was like, we need this where I live, So, and I just started searching for similar programs in the area, and there was none. So it dawned on me that, I believe that I am doing what I'm meant to be doing as life goes on. And I'm always, checking in to see signs or whatever you want to call it. And I was like, well, I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm not going to think, oh, I wish I have found this program 15 years ago when I, before I had kids and all that stuff. Like, I don't like spending time in that. So I was like, well, I'm here now. This is when I found the program. It must be that I must start it here. So I just started it. I was like, we need what they offer here in Boise, Idaho.
I love that. And I agree. A lot of times, for me anyway, I'll think about how I went to pharmacy school and I'm not really using it a lot right now. And just working on advanced degrees that then you aren't using, but still finding purpose in that, and not because dwelling on it isn't going to help at all. I have seen you in action as a teacher, both through this nature program as well as at the Montessori school. And I know that you had a deep affection for that job at Montessori. What was it like to make that change from where you'd kind of been doing both for a little bit, and then you started to feel this pull, this passion? I think, didn't you describe it about, I thought I remember you describing it as far as like being in a current and just being pulled in a new direction?
Yes.
How were you able to make that jump? And like, what kind of faith was involved with making that leap?
Yeah, a lot. So it was really hard. I think part of it was just time. A lot of things happened. First I had that experience 2 years ago, and then I was at school and I implemented actually a lot, as much as I could, but I couldn't implement as much as I wanted to, just because it's the nature of the classroom. I think unfortunate in a way, like I noticed I had lost the spark, and I don't think that necessarily visible to others. I hope not. That I just didn't have, my passion was just shifting, and I just wanted more of the outdoor time. I wanted to be outside more. And I think I did decide a whole year before. So I taught for a whole year knowing that was my last year. And I did, and I also did like a closure ceremony where I wrote a letter about everything that Montessori had brought to me as a parent, as a professional, as an educator, just filled with gratitude, just 2 pages filled with gratitude. And then I burnt it and did a little ritual around that. And that really, I think it helped me focus on just that whole year. I just felt so grateful. Maddie, who took over my classroom, it was so awesome to see her excitement and her enthusiasm and of doing, of being a new teacher. It was bittersweet, but it was such a cool way to say goodbye, is having somebody that was just so excited and so passionate. It reminded me of when I started, and it was just all very, just very sweet. Like I was just very happy that that's how it was ending. It wasn't all of a sudden, it was very well planned and orchestrated. And I feel very lucky about that. I do remember sitting at my counter and my partner, Dylan, asking me like, is this what you want to do? Like, how do you know? And I was like, it's just the right thing for me to do, and that's all I've got. And I know that sounds crazy, but almost every decision in my life, I've really, really just listened to my heart. And I feel like that sounds there was a lot of thought put into it. And it wasn't just swaying one way to the other, following my heart's whim. It was a very thoughtful process. And at the end of the day, I would call it nowadays, I would call it before heart, and I would call it my true north. I just really rely on my true north to make that final decision.
I've been in that situation where I've ended up leaving a job or things like that. And all I have, they'll ask why you're leaving. And I was like, I just, like, I think prayer is a different thing for many different people. But I would be like, I prayed about it and I feel like I need to move on. And I feel like in some instances, people would be like, really? Like, that's what you're basing this off of? But what else would you base it off of if you're in tune with your heart? And like, that's the most important thing, is that you're living your life aligned with what you feel, which no one else can tell you, but what you feel is correct for you and the way that you can make the impact that you feel called to make.
And I feel like you can weather the storm better that way.
Yeah.
It's a decision that is right for me, or, however you want to phrase it. But like, so anything that happens, you're like, but I'm living my best life. So, and I don't know, that sounds a little ostentatious, but, but I do believe it. Like, I can aim high and just keep going up that mountain, and just, that's where I want to go. I'm going to keep going towards that. And, like it's a nice guiding point.
So how did you develop your love for nature and the outdoors? You talked a little bit about it, but did you have it when you were a kid too? Were you just one of those kids who was always outside?
No, not really. I mean, as much. So I don't know. Lost Child. What's it called? Lost Child in the Woods. The Richard Louv book it's a scary book to read. Even my generation, the '80s generation, we had even less outdoor contact than the generations before us. But it's a scary thing that's happening. And so when I was growing up, I spent time outside. I grew up in a tropical climate, so I was always in a pool or the beach. And I also played video games and read books. And I think it really began when I accidentally or coincidentally, however you want to call it, went and taught in the Florida Keys. Like I didn't know any of the animals or the plants that I grew up with. I just knew some of them randomly. It was just like the wall of green, as some people call it. And then, that was any seasonal job is just very in tune with nature, whether it's part of the job description or not. And after that, I just really valued the time I spent outside. It was more recreational, kayaking, skiing, snowboarding, rafting, all that, which we still do as a family, hiking, backpacking. Dylan got me into backpacking. Since I went to Wilderness Awareness School, we started, one of the things that they strongly recommend is a sit spot. So you sit outside every day or as often as you can. And I've been doing that at one little spot alongside the Boise River for 2 years. And it has exponentially grown my love for really Mother Earth. Like, and it has helped me love myself more, love my family more, love my life more. So it's been such an incredible experience out of something so simple as being outside. Recently, like a couple months ago, I've been doing this for 2 years. I ran into somebody as I was going there, and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I like to sit outside." And he's like, "Oh, you meditate?" And I'm like, I guess. So I guess I've been meditating or praying outside for 2 years now. I guess that's a way to put it. But it's something that I think a lot of people would pass by as like, I don't know, just a little thing that I'll get to if I have a chance to do. But for me, it has become a priority. And, it's not every day. 3 times a week is a good week. And I spend anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. I would love for it to be more, but that's just not in the cards right now. But that has 100% made me have a commitment towards sharing nature with others.
I grew up in northern Minnesota, so very kind of opposite of you, but at the same time, very outdoorsy.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the home where my dad lived growing up. We had 1,000 feet of lakeshore and over 40 acres of forest. It was such a child's playground. It was just perfect and wonderful. And we would go for a boat ride. We called it ADBR, an after dinner boat ride, almost every day. That there was no lightning and no ice. We would go for a boat ride. And I found such peace in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I moved away. I moved to Chicago. It was kind of the first place I moved after home. And I lived right on Lakeshore Drive, but there was Lakeshore Drive and then there was Navy Pier and there's all these people and it's not my spot on the lake. It's everybody's spot. And then about a year and a half after that, I moved to upstate New York and I thought, I just need to go near some water where other people aren't. And so I found this little spot where I could go have a little picnic lunch in a town called Webster. And it's right on Lake Ontario. And I was able to, like, the moment I heard the water, like, that was all it took, was just the moment you hear the water lapping on the shoreline. You're just brought that peace and that feeling of home and security. And it's just such a foundation. And so here I do the same thing. There's a spot, like along Boise River as well, like up in Star River Walk. I have this little spot where I'm like, if I'm having a rough day, I'll just swing by there and just go there for a few minutes, reconnect, and find my center. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and what's interesting is it's something that if everybody looks at their childhood, chances are that they had their sit spot. Like it's something, it's something natural. Like, you know, it's something that we seek, and we've unfortunately, as we become adults and become busy, like we kind of forget about that, but it's something ingrained. So I can look at when I started learning about sit spot, I looked at my childhood. I was like, oh my gosh, I totally did have a spot, and it changed, and it wasn't, you know, and the thing that was missing for me is like, I didn't have a mentor to nourish it and become a piece of growth. It was just something I did. And most likely every child does it. And most likely every adult can think of a spot that they had. So I did want to say that I did spend a lot of time outside. Like we did when you talk about the boat ride, we did go on a lot of boat rides, and my dad, we had a vacation house. I'm like making quotes, a little house that had no TV, no phone. And we would spend 2 weeks for sure in the summer, and then like 2 weeks for sure, and then every weekend here and there. And I think that definitely is easier to access our natural love for nature when you've had that as a child.
It's true. And I've heard some, as you mentioned, like our generation spends less time outdoors, and it seems to just get smaller and smaller. And I don't remember, but I've heard like startling statistics about the number of children who've never gone camping or things like that. And when I look back on our summers, my favorite things to do are the camping trips. And my kids, you ask them, that's always their favorite thing too, was going camping and doing this and spending time outdoors together. What advice would you have for parents who maybe don't have that routine or tradition of getting outdoors, whether it's on a weekend camping trip, or if it's more on a more regular basis and not as big of an event? But what advice do you have for parents to help not only themselves, but also their kids to get that time outdoors, especially for parents who may live in more of an urban area where it's not as accessible for them?
Yeah. I think, let me see, where do I want to start? I wanted to share the book Coyote's Guide to Nature Connections, the main book that we use for our program, had this part about how they lit a fire, and it was the first time with a match. And it was the first time students have ever seen a fire. This was in an inner city program. So believe it or not, like lighting a candle is actually tapping into our nature connection. And I don't do this right now. I don't do it routinely, but sometimes when I'm feeling that we're not having enough nature connection, I will light a candle while I read a story at nighttime and then blow it out. And that's tapping into the way our ancestors did it for millennia, of like sitting by a fire at nighttime. The other part, so it can be as simple as that, like light a candle, have a plant that your child is in charge of, and they water it every day and they talk to it or whatever, depends on the kid and how they see that. The other thing is, what got me as a parent to start doing more stuff outside is I was noticing myself as a young parent, just consumerism, like they need this, they need that, they need the other. So I made a goal of myself of spending a day not spending money. And when you choose not to spend money for a day, you will most likely be going outside. So do something free. And chances are that it will. Yeah. It did take me to the library. And after that, it was hikes. Like, that's an easy way for an easy buy-in. Like, I'm going to do something free. And in Boise, I loved, especially for younger families, and I just went there last week, the story trail at the Foothills Learning Center. It's a trail that has a story, and it's, maybe a quarter mile. And it took sometimes 10 minutes to do it, other times an hour and a half. But that gave us kind of a goal I think sometimes people see nature as like wilderness, a camping trip 5 hours away. And I don't like that. Your backyard I like to let my backyard be as wild as it can. Having a part of your backyard that you let grow wild, going down the Boise Greenbelt, I feel that's tapping into wilderness. Is just any place that's not kept. You can tap into it, looking at the stars at night, just sitting in your backyard and looking at the clouds. Like, it's just really simple things. And if you really remember what you treasured as a child, those are the things you loved, I loved looking at clouds and seeing all the animals. And it's something I realized last summer that I haven't done it with my kids. We live in such a fast-paced culture that kids don't have a lot of time to have, it's almost a pass down of activities that if you're not part of a community that has, that kids wander around themselves, they don't learn these things. They don't learn to lay on their back and look at the clouds, which is unfortunate, to say the least. It's like those moments are so peaceful. We kind of forget that moments of peace, moment of calm are so accessible.
We talked about this a little bit just now, and as well as when you were talking about the sit spot, but in what ways has nature and being outdoors provided like a refuge and solace for you during these last few months where it seems like our society has just been, one, moving really fast, and two, really divisive? How have you found peace and solace in nature?
The first thing that comes to mind is it was really interesting how our lifestyle didn't change a lot because we do free things. So they're usually outside. So for me, at the beginning, I was surprised. I want to say annoyed, so I'll just say it. I was kind of annoyed that my area was getting a little bit more people going through it, and I need to share it. It's like, it's not my area; it's here for everybody. And that's great that people are out. But oh goodness, I decided to stop teaching at the end of last year, and at first I knew it was going to be a giant change, a giant shift. And then to have the whole world join me was a little interesting. I don't know. For me, I was expecting the change. I was expecting the challenge, just the shift of mental, like, I'm not a Montessori teacher anymore. So all of those things are happening as COVID is happening as well, which kind of affects everybody. I guess what I'm trying to say is I was expecting all these changes to happen, and now it's at a global scale, and nature has been 100%. Like, there has been 2 or 3 times where I need to drop everything and go outside, whether it's my sit spot or by a tree, to feel grounded. I don't know what I would be doing without it, without my sit spot. I don't know how I would be where I'm at right now at all without that. And I just wish everybody knew how simple it is, And I think it helps, having my sit spot helps be able to tap into feeling connected anywhere else. So I was in Puerto Rico helping my mom move, and it was a lot more difficult than we anticipated it to be. And I remember sitting outside and just really reaching out to the trees that were in a concrete jungle. And they have like literally a 36 by 36 space. And this is a 100-foot tree. 36 inches by 36 inches space, maybe a little bit more, and how they had just grown to over 100 feet. And to know that nature is always there, always shining, just immediately calms me. And I don't feel like I need to have all my emotions. I can just share that with the tree and just take it, just take all this, and I like to think, just like, I need their oxygen and they need my carbon dioxide. I kind of hope that all those like emotions they can digest for their growth, and I can just give it to them. But I definitely release a lot. It's definitely my lifeline.
And you have an Instagram account. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because you share great, not only ideas about things to do with your kids, and sometimes you do little challenges and things like that, but also thoughts and different poems and things like that. And I've loved that. So can you share a little bit about, I don't know, are you on Facebook too? Share a little bit about where people can find more.
So I have a really difficult time with social media. And as I'm growing my business, I understood that I need to have social media. I was off social media for almost a year, about a year ago. And just now I'm about a year ago when I started the programs and all that stuff. So what came to me as a good plan is to kind of have a focus, I am not my Instagram account. The Instagram account is not me. So what do I want to share about myself in my Instagram account? So obviously at first it was Coyote Conscience. And then, but then I felt like a split was happening where I had something else I wanted to share. So now I have two. I have my Coyote Conscience account that shares things about what we're doing in our programs and really to get our name out there. And hopefully, and it's kind of the idea of just sharing something nature connected in a virtual world, and then my personal account, I try to memorize poems. Somebody once said, instead of calling it memorizing, is learn from the heart, learn by heart, which I think is very sweet. Because part of my, trying to find my true north, there's a lot of noise, and somebody said that poetry is the language of the soul. And I figured if I tried to really understand somebody else's expression of their soul, it would help me listen to mine. So that's basically why I started doing that. And it's been really cool to memorize a poem because every line, and probably almost every poem I share, I mess something up because it is from memory, and some of them are kind of long, but you guys don't need to know that. It's like when you're playing piano. When you're playing piano, it's like, just keep playing when you make a mistake. But it's really cool because I just really get to flavor, and you play with the words, and you really need to feel them and experience them, and really be curious about why they chose that word instead of this word. Because I'll say one, I'm like, is that the word that they use? And they chose a different one. And why did they? Because you kind of need to understand why they chose that one. So at least for me, so I can memorize it. And there's just poetry is something else that's slowly dwindling. It's so valuable. And I personally don't have a huge connection to it. So I am now because I'm really enjoying reading all these different poems. And poetry is meant to be read out loud anyway. So when I try to read it to myself, it doesn't quite sound the same as when I read it out loud. It doesn't quite connect as well or sit in as well. So
that's true. It doesn't have the same gravity, I guess.
Yes. So I wanted to share a poem, and so I picked a book called The Currents of the World by Quinn Bailey, who was actually one of the guides at the Wilderness Awareness School program that I went to, the Art of Mentoring. And I decided to just open the page to a random page. So this is a poem that I just randomly opened to. It's called The Witch. Beware the witch. Her faces are many. You will know her by the smell of roses and little deaths. Her strange divinity will surely peel back your skin, rub you in the dirt of the earth, and leave you hanging upside down in the pines to rot a while. Like some broken bell in an old church tower, you will wait, silent on the hill, the stars burning, brighter and brighter each night, until one day, when the right beam breaks, all the kingdoms of the forest will pause, and the heavy masks of falseness will slip from you with such a sound. Then, what royalty you could be.
I love that. Okay, so the last question is always the same. Mm-hmm. The purpose of Pebbles of Light is to celebrate those relationships that have helped brighten our path and in turn help us to light the paths of others. Who are one or two people that have placed a pebble of light in your path?
When I saw that question, and it was kind of an interesting one for me because as I looked at my life, and I've actually grieved about that question a lot, about not having a pebble of light growing up. And I had a wonderful childhood, but I am stubborn and my way or the highway. So I think there was a level of people kind of being like standoffish and like, let her just do her thing. But I can't pinpoint one person that was a guiding light for me growing up. I had loving parents. I had amazing aunts and uncles and great teachers, but it's something that I can't say. I had, amazing friendships. And it's one of the reasons that I'm doing Coyote Conscience. I want children to have the light that I needed of that nature connection, because that's my way of finding peace, and is to be able to share that with other kids, because I personally didn't have that.
I love that idea of your reasoning behind doing this. And I feel lucky and blessed that my kids get to be a part of it and gain that pebble of light and that desire to recognize the beauty and majesty of nature and what that can bring to us, to help us recognize our own beauty and majesty and the part that we play in the world and in Mother Nature. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your passion about the outdoors. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I hope that it is helpful.
I'm grateful for Maria and her desire to share her love of nature with others. I hope you felt inspired by her courage to follow her dreams as well. I appreciate her desire to provide pebbles of light to those around her. The pebble for this week is twice this week, take 20 minutes to spend outside. I also loved Maria and I's discussion about childhood sit spots, so that can be a bonus pebble. To take some time to reflect on your own childhood and recognize those sit spots that you had. Be sure to check the show notes for more resources, including how to get in touch with Maria, as well as how to support the podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Pebbles of Light. I appreciate you being here. If you have a second, could you please leave a review or share the podcast with a friend? It will really help us to spread the message of Pebbles of Light to others. Keep looking for those bright spots on your path, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in today. More than what has been said, I hope that you've been able to listen to your thoughts and feelings. Maybe you've thought of someone who's brought light to your path. Let them know of your gratitude. Maybe you've been inspired as to how to add some light to your own path or the path of another. Do your best to act on those feelings and impressions. I would love to learn more about you and your experiences. Please come find me on Instagram and Facebook at Pebbles of Light. If you like what you hear, please review so we can spread this light further. You can find show notes and more resources at ammaxon.com. Until next time.